appreciate you joining us on Class 1 and encourage you to share this with others and invite them to the future classes. And we'll be able to get them access to that as well so they can come up to speed with us. So let's go and get started. This is the first class. We're going to be talking about two key principles that are really, really important. These are the foundational ones. The understanding this helps us to really get what we're going to be talking about in the future classes. And of course, we have natural law. And natural law is just like this is one of those things that people just really don't grasp. They're like, where is that written? And so when they ask that, well, okay, you don't get the concept. And so we want to be able to go over that. And then if you kind of do, it's good to kind of have an overview and maybe have a different angle taken for it. And then also, this is a battle between Christ and Satan. And so it's essential that we understand the tactics that are used to try and get us out of the battle, because Satan, of course, the easiest battle is the battle not fought. And so if he can get us to not even engage in this battle, he's already won. And so we want to be able to go through some of the key things that Satan does to get us to just step out and not think that there's anything that can be done. And so we've got our great tech support. So here's Sam. If there's anything that you think I need to do better, or if you got something we need to take care of, let me know. But the purpose of these classes, right, is we need to build understanding of the principles that have built free nations, expose the satanic conspiracy, and build an effective resistance to that conspiracy. I've been involved in Liberty for 20 years now. And what I've noticed is that people think they know things that they don't know. And this was especially manifest during 2020 and 2021, where people were just losing their minds. They were really angry, justly so, about what the government was doing with mandates, shutting things down, saying that you couldn't meet in your home with your family for the holidays. And so people were really angry and they wanted to do something. But what we noticed was that they didn't have the fundamental principles of liberty, of natural law, of the Constitution, and what the conspiracy was doing. And so people were easily duped into doing things that were actually worse than doing nothing at all. And so we felt that it was essential to put together a course to help us all as we wake up to be like, okay, well, what do we do? Make sure we don't fall for the wolves in sheep's clothing. Make sure we don't just jump into the first thing that we see, that we're able to get a grasp of what needs to be done, what should be done. And so these are foundations that really you're not going to see in any other class in the Constitution. I've been doing this for a long time, and that's what we wanted to do. Is we've seen people go through a lot of other classes on the Constitution, but they're still continuing to fall for the same things and engage in the same solutions that actually empower their conspiracy. And so we needed to say, okay, where were these falling short, and what gap needs to be filled to make sure we don't do this anymore? And so it's clear. And we want to go back to the Declaration of Independence. This is the foundation document to what later became this union of 13 independent nations. And there are some key principles of natural law in the Declaration of Independence. And they explain that, they use that term right there. It says to assume the powers of the earth, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. So laws of nature, nature's God, natural law. That's what they're referring to when they're talking about this. And so what are those things? So what is natural law? Where is it written, right? People say, well, most laws, right? We think of laws, we think of government, we think of legislative bodies, that they vote on it. It's written down. We know who decided on natural law might be a question that people ask. And so when you think of that, we need to understand that this principle. We have this ball here, right? What happens if we throw it in the air? The ball falls down, right? How do we know that? We've observed it. But what happens if something else happens, right? We take a different step. Who voted on the fact that if we throw a ball up in the air, the ball is going to fall down? Nobody voted on it. But let's say we did. Let's say we voted on it and we said it is now illegal for balls to fall down after we throw them up in the air. What is going to happen? Balls will still fall down. This is not going to change this natural law, this thing that is true no matter when and where, right? It's unchangeable. It's a principle that we can depend on throughout time, and that it's unchangeable, and that we can, throughout time, the wheel has changed. Technology changes, smoother. It maybe has a more comfortable ride, might last longer, but the basic fundamental principle of the wheel rolling is still intact thousands of years after its invention. And so it's something it's no matter when, no matter where, no matter what. And so the Declaration of Independence talks about these laws of nature and of nature's God in regards to human interaction and human rights. It starts off, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Okay, our rights come from God. That among these rights that we get from God are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that to secure these rights that God gave us, we need to protect them. Governments were instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So we create government to be able to protect our God-given rights. And because we created it, we give certain authority to government. And that's where they get their just powers from. That whenever any government becomes destructive to these ends, meaning destructive to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish that government, and then to institute new government that will protect your rights. So we look at it, right? It's self-evident, meaning it's obvious. No matter what other people say, we're not going to argue with you. If you're going to tell us that grass is purple, we're not going to have an argument. You're just not an honest person. If you don't, if we don't agree with these things, then there's just no way to be able to associate and have an honest argument or a discussion. We get our rights from God. That is self-evident, that if government gives us our rights, that means government can take them away. But no, God gave us our rights. And then some of these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or the accumulation of property and control of that property. Government was created by the people to protect, not give us our rights, right? We have rights given to us from God. Government's role is simply to protect them. We have in the so-called Bill of Rights, which I think might have been not the best name to give it, because it's not a bill of things that the government gives you. It's those things that the government can't violate. It's a list of thou shalt nots. And so we think of the First Amendment, right? The right to freedom of religion. Does that mean that the government has to provide you with a church? Or freedom of the press? Does that mean the government has to give you a website or a printing press? No, they just can't stop you from speaking your mind. They can't stop you from exercising your religion freely. And all through the Bill of Rights, all of those things. People talk about rights today as if it's something the government owes you, but that is completely the antithesis of freedom and actually leads to tyranny. Government's sole role is to protect rights, not to provide them. And so government, of course, it gets its authority from those that created it. We are superior because we created it, and they are inferior, and so they are subject to us. But if the government thinks itself more superior to its creator, then it's our job. It's our duty to either change that government or to dissolve it and to come up with a new government that will actually protect our rights. Because pieces of paper don't enforce themselves. The scriptures don't enforce themselves. They are God's law for us, but we have to enforce them. Same thing with the Constitution. The Constitution has to be enforced by living people. Otherwise, those that seek for power will take more and more. And so we want to look at the examples of others that have had success in restoring the liberty for themselves and their associates and their people throughout time. It's important for us to understand the founding fathers, when they looked at were forming the Constitution, what they were doing was they were looking throughout the past to see what governments did that helped protect liberty. But a study hasn't been done that we're going to cover throughout this course is what have people done throughout time to be able to restore lost liberty? Because that's something that's not covered a lot. We need to follow natural law and look at people in the past that have showed us the way. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already been invented. But as I mentioned earlier, this is a battle between Christ and Satan. And so Satan wants you out of the battle because that's going to be a battle not fought. And so we need to understand that there is not a time in history where liberty has been gained without effort. real effort, not simply writing a sternly written letter to a tyrant or a Satan worshiper, as we'll cover in future classes. It takes effort. It's not a passive thing. And there is a movement that seeks to get religious people, especially, out of the battle. And they use so-called prophecy to make people think that there's nothing that can or should be done.